Hey guys, how you doing? My name's Eli Maxey, and I've got way too much time on my hands right now. So aside from doing yard work and carving and candle making and all the other things I normally do, I figured I'd settle down and read one of my favorite books to you guys. This is Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time series. The first book is called Eye of the World. It was first published in 1990, I believe, the year I was born. That's why it's always kind of held some kind of relevance to me in some way, shape, or form. Not just because it's the best series ever written. The character growth and aspect and depth is just amazing. But it also helped me really get through a lot of tough times when I was growing up. Just like the Star Wars series or the Star Trek series. A lot of authors I feel can help us face our fears, face our doubts, see who we are from an outside perspective, and help us change and grow and become better people. It's never a perfect story, it's never a perfect world, but we can root for the characters just like we can root for ourselves, and know that there's hope for them to change just like there's hope for us to change and continue to be better people and humans. And while we're stuck on this whole quarantine, cities are shutting down, and people are having to stay home, and just remember to find yourself in a book sometimes. It'd be kind of cool. So we're going to start things off. We might do the prologue and chapter 1. We might just do the prologue. We'll just see where we go and what it looks like. But if you guys like more, feel free to subscribe down below and hit the bell notification. That way you guys know when I post videos or when I go live. I need 1,000 subscribers to go live mobily, which is kind of what I want to do. I want to read outside. I don't like being cramped indoors, and I don't want to bring my computer outside all the time either. So, but yeah, I think at this point I have 0 subscribers. So yeah, be the first 10, be the first 15. I plan on doing this series as long as I can, as long as people seem to enjoy it and seem to like it. So Amazon is creating a TV show. That's another part of my video. Unfortunately, we're gonna have cars, birds, and planes, and occasionally dogs in the video. So I apologize for that. Just kind of bear with me. If the audio ever gets too bad, we have plans of getting a direct feed of audio from here to the streaming device, to the phone. So once we get that, things should be a little bit better off. This is still just kind of a testing phase. So anyway, back to the series. Robert Jordan, the guy who wrote it, he started writing in 1977, I think. He's got a few other smaller, lesser known books published, but this is his main series. Worked on it most of his life. His wife was his editor. They fell in love editing books, and he was a pipe collector, a historian. He was a nuclear physicist for the Navy. He was also a two-term Vietnam vet. So just really smart, really courageous guy. Every interview I've seen with him, I'm just always just amazed by the depth of his knowledge and character. So feel free to look him up. Feel free to, if you want to hear more about him, if you want to hear me gush more about him, just say so below. As we read, I'll probably continue just giving you little tidbits here and there about him and his life. The sad part of the story is he did unfortunately die before he finished the series. But he did finish the series. The cool thing about him is he wrote the last book in the series first. He knew exactly where he wanted the story to go. He knew exactly how he wanted it to end. And so he wrote that whole section out first. And then he came back to this and started this. And then that turned into about, I think it was 10 books at the time. 10 or 11 books at the time, and he passed away. But like I said, his wife was his editor. Hold for audio. But yeah, like I said, his wife was his editor, and of course she knew the story. She knew where it was going to end. He knew that he was getting sick. I can't exactly remember what he became sick from, but but it was a degenerative disease, so he had time. He would take notes and he would do voice recordings and just to fill in all the holes and connect all the lines and all the dots, as it were. And they found an author named Brandon Sanderson to help finish it. And it was originally supposed to be like 1 or 2 books, maybe just 1 big book. But he was like, there's just so much. He gave us so much. He gave our readers so much detail, so many characters. There's more characters in this book, like main characters in this book, than any other series I've ever read. And you'll be amazed as to how far they grow and how far they go and what they find within themselves. And so yeah, Brandon Sanderson finished the series, turned 1 book into 3, which is fantastic. You know, some people complain that, oh, it was a money grab, but I don't think it was a money grab. I think he genuinely wanted to do right by Robert Jordan and his readers, his fans, us. Amazon is currently in the process of making a TV show. Well, not now, they're shut down for coronavirus, as is everything. That's why I'm here now. But yeah, they're making a TV show. They've got the majority of everyone cast. They've got the locations, they've got the writers. I'll try to put a link in my description to their Instagram and that kind of thing so you can keep track of that. But yeah, they've got some really good stuff going on there, and I'm really excited for it. It's always been one of my lifelong dreams to work on this show, to work on it in some capacity. When I was a cameraman, it was, you know, as a camera operator / director, producer, because I know the storyline. I've probably read this book series about going on 20 times. I have the audiobooks as well. I have, multiple copies, and it's very important to me, and I think it'll help a lot of people get through what life is right now, for whatever stance you are, rich, poor, you're doing well off. Read this, it'll help you, value being well off and not get stagnated. If you're not doing well off, read this, it'll help you find the courage and the passion and desire to find and better yourself. And everywhere in between, man. Love, relationships, politics, dealing with people who are antagonistic towards you at first, and then, dealing with people when you're too far forward and have to back yourself off. I mean, there's everything you could think of in this series, and I hope you guys are going to like it as much as I do. In fact, I know you will. It's just if you're going to like me reading it. If you read it by yourself, you might like it. But I'm going to give it a shot. We're going to start off now since we're about, 5-7 minutes into the video. The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. Prologue. Dragon Mountain. The palace still shook occasionally as the earth rumbled in memory, groaned as if it would deny what had happened. Bars of sunlight cast through rents in the walls made motes of dust glitter when they were yet hung in the air. Scorch marks marred the walls, the floors, the ceilings. Broad black smears crossed the blistered paints and gilt of once bright murals. Soot overlaying crumbling friezes of men and animals which seemed to have attempted to walk before the madness grew quiet again. The dead lay everywhere. Men, women, and children, struck down in attempted flight by the lightnings that had flashed down every corridor, or seized by the fires that had stalked them, or sunken into stone of the palace, the stones that had flowed and sought, almost alive, before the stillness came again. An odd counterpart, colorful tapestries, paintings, masterworks, all hung undisturbed, except where bulging walls had pushed them awry. Finely carved furnishings inlaid with ivory and gold stood untouched, except where the ripple floors had toppled them over. The mind-twisting had struck at the core, ignoring peripheral things. Luz Theron Telamon wandered the palace, deftly keeping his balance when the earth heaved. Ilyena! Ilyena, my love, where are you? The edge of his pale gray cloak trailed through blood as he stepped across the body of a woman, her golden hair beauty marred by the horror of her last moments, her still open eyes frozen in disbelief. Where are you, my life? Where is everyone hiding? His eyes caught his own reflection in a mirror hanging askew from bubbled marble. His clothes had been regal once, in gray and scarlet gold. Now the finely woven cloth brought by merchants from across the world sea was torn and dirty, thick with the same dust that covered his hair and skin. For a moment, he fingered the symbol on his cloak, a circle, half white and half black, the colors separated by a sinuous line. It meant something, that symbol, but the embroidered circle could not hold his attention long. He gazed at his own image with as much wonder, a tall man just into his middle years, handsome once, but now with hair already more white than brown, and a face lined by strain and worry, dark eyes that had seen too much. Lews Therin began to chuckle, and his laughter echoed down the lifeless halls. "Ilyena, my love, come to me, my wife, you must see this." Behind him the air rippled, shimmered, solidifying into a man who looked around, his mouth twisting briefly with distaste. Not so tall as Lews Therin, he was clothed in all black, save for the snow-white lace at his throat and the silverwork on his turned down tops of his thigh-high boots. He stepped carefully, handling his cloak fastidiously to avoid brushing the dead. The floor trembled with aftershocks, but his attention was fixed on the man staring into the mirror and laughing. "Lord of the Morning," he said, "I have come for you." The laughter cut off as if it had never been, and Lews Therin turned, seeming unsurprised. "Ah, a guest! Have you the voice, stranger? It will soon be time for the singing, and here all are welcome to take part." "Ilyena, my love, we have a guest! Ilyena, where are you?" The black-clad man's eyes widened and darted to the body of the gold-haired woman, and then back to Lews Therin. "Shaitan take you! Does the taint have you so far in its grip? That name, Lews Therin shuddered and raised a hand as if to ward off something. "You mustn't say that name. It's dangerous." "So you remember that much at least. Dangerous for you, fool, but not for me. What else do you remember? Remember, you light-blinded idiot? I will not let it end with you swaddled in ignorance. Remember!" For a moment, Lews Therin stared at his raised hand, fascinated by the patterns of grime. Then he wiped his hand on his even dirtier cloak and turned his attention back to the other man. "Who are you? What do you want?" The black-clad man drew himself up arrogantly. "Once I was called Elan Mor Tedronai, but now, Betrayer of Hope." It was a whisper from Lews Therin. Memory stirred, but he turned his head, shying away from it. "Yes, so you do remember some things. Betrayer of Hope. So have men named me, just as they named you Dragon. But unlike you, I embraced the name. They gave me the name to revile me, but I will yet make them kneel and worship it. What will you do with your name? After this day, men will call you Kinslayer. What will you do with that?" Lews Therin frowned down the ruined hall. "Ilyena should be here to offer a guest welcome," he murmured absently, and then raised his voice. "Ilyena, where are you?" The floor shook. The golden-haired woman's body shifted as if to answer his call, but his eyes did not see her. Elan Morn grimaced. "Look at you," he said scornfully. "Once you stood first among the servants. Once you wore the ring of Tamerlane and sat in a high seat. Once you summoned the 9 rods of dominion. And now look at you, a pitiful, shattered wretch. But it is not enough. You humbled me in the hall of servants. You defeated me at the gates of Paradisen. But I am the greater now, and I will not let you die without knowing that. When you die, your last thought will be this full knowledge of your defeat, and how complete and utter it is, if I can let you die at all." I cannot imagine what's keeping Ilyena. She'll give me the rough side of her tongue if she thinks I have been hiding a guess from her. I hope you enjoy a conversation, my friend, for she surely does. Be forewarned, Ilyena will ask you so many questions, you may end up telling her everything you know. Tossing back his black cloak, Elan Morn flexed his hands. "A pity for you," he mused, "that one of your sisters is not here. I was never very skilled at healing, and I follow a different power now. But even one of them could only give you a few lucid moments, if you did not destroy her first. What I can do will serve as well for my purpose." His sudden smile was cruel, "But I fear Shaitan's healing is different from the sort you know. Be healed, Lews Therin." He extended his hands, and the light dimmed as if a shadow had been laying across the sun. Pain blazed in Lews Therin as he screamed, a scream that came from his depths, a scream he could not stop. Fire in his marrow, and acid rushed along his veins. He toppled backwards, crashing to the marble floor. His head struck the stone and rebounded. His heart pounding, trying to beat a way out of its chest. Every single pulse gushed new flame through him. Helplessly he convulsed, thrashing, his skull a sphere of purest agony on the point of bursting. and his hoarse screams reverberated through the palace. Slowly, ever so slowly, the pain receded. The outflowing seemed to take 1,000 years and left him twitching weakly. Sucking breath through a raw rant, another 1,000 years seemed to pass before he could manage to heave himself over, muscles like jellyfish, and shakily push himself up on hands and knees. His eyes fell on the golden-haired woman, and the scream that ripped out of him dwarfed every scream he had made before. Tottering, almost falling, he scrabbled brokenly across the floor to her, and it took every bit of his strength to pull her into his arms, and his hands shook as he smothered her hair back from her staring face. "Ilyena! Light, help me, Ilyena!" His body curved around hers protectively, his sobs the full-throated cries of a man who had nothing left to live for. "Ilyena, no! No! You can have her back, Kinslayer. The great Lord of the Dark can make her live again if you serve him. If you will serve me." Lews Therin raised his head, and the black-clad man took an involuntary step back from his gaze. 10 years, betrayer," Lews Therin said softly, the sound of steel being bared. 10 years your foul master has racked the world, and now this. I will 10 years? You pitiful fool, this war has not lasted 10 years, but since the beginning of time. You and I have fought 1,000 battles in the turning of the wheel, 1,000 times 1,000, and we will fight until time dies and the shadow is triumphant. He finished in a shout with a raised fist, and it was Lews Therin's turn to pull back, breath catching at the glow in the betrayer's eyes. Carefully, Lews Therin laid Ilyena down, fingers gently brushing her hair, and tears blurred his vision as he stood, but his voice was iced iron. "For what you have done, there can be no forgiveness, betrayer. But for Ilyena's death, I will destroy you beyond anything your master can repair. Prepare to remember, you fool! Remember your futile attack on the great Lord of the Dark? Remember his counterstroke? Remember, even now the 100 companions are tearing the world apart, and every day 100 men more join them. What hand slew Ilyena's son, Herr Kinslayer? Not mine. What hand struck down every life that bore a drop of your blood? Everyone who loved you, everyone you loved. Not mine, Kinslayer. Not mine. Remember, and know the price of opposing Shaitan." Sudden sweat made tracks down Lews Therin's face through the dust and dirt, and he remembered. A cloudy memory like the dream of a dream, but he knew it to be true. His howl beat at the walls, the howl of a man who had discovered his soul damned by his own hand, and he clawed at his face as if to tear away the sight of what it had done. Everywhere he looked, his eyes found the dead. Torn they were, or broken, or burned, half consumed by the stone around them. Everywhere lay lifeless faces he knew, faces he loved. Old servants, friends of his childhood, faithful companions through the long years of battle, and his children. His own sons and daughters, sprawled like broken dolls, placed stilled forever, all slain by his hand. His children's faces accused him, blank eyes asking why, and his tears were no answer. The betrayer's laughter flogged him, drowning out his house, and he could not bear the faces, the pain. He could not bear to remain any longer. Desperately, he reached out to the true source, to tainted saidin, and he traveled. The land around him was flat and empty. A river flowed nearby, straight and broad, and he could sense there were no people within 100 leagues. He was alone as a man could be while still yet alive. But he could not escape the memory. The eyes pursued him through the endless caverns of his mind. He could not hide from them. His children's eyes, Ilyena's eyes. Light, forgive me. He did not believe it could come forgiveness, not for what he had done, but he shouted to the sky anyway, begged for what he could not believe he could receive. Light, forgive me. He was still touching saidin, the male half of the power that drove the universe, that turned the wheel of time, and he could feel the oily taint fouling its surface, the taint of the shadow's counterstroke, the taint that would doom the world. Because of him. Because in his pride, he believed that man could match the Creator, could mend what the Creator had made, and they had broken. In his pride, he had believed. He drew on the true source deeply, and still more deeply, like a man dying of thirst. Quickly, he had drawn more of the one power than he could channel unaided, and his skin felt as if it were aflame. Straining, he forced himself to draw more, tried to draw it all. Light, forgive me, Ilyena. The air turned to fire, the fire to light liquefied, and the bolt that struck from the heavens would have seared and blinded any eye that glimpsed it, even for an instant. From the heavens it came, it blazed through Luz Theras Telamon, bored into the bowels of the earth. Stone turned to vapor at its touch. The earth thrashed and quivered like a living thing in agony. Only a heartbeat did the shining bar exist, connecting ground and sky. But even after it vanished, the earth yet heaved like a sea in the storm. Molten rock fountain 500 feet into the air, and the groaning ground rose, thrusting and burning spray ever upward, ever higher. From north to south, from east to west, the wind howled in, snapping trees like twigs, shrieking and blowing as if to aid the growing mountain ever skyward, ever skyward. At last the wind died. The earth stilled to trembling mutters. Of Luz Theras Telamon, no sign remained. Where he had stood, a mountain now rose miles into the sky, molten lava still gushing from its peak. The broad, straight river... Sorry, neighbor's dog. Sorry. The broad, straight river had been pushed into a curve away from the mountain, and there it split into a long island in its midst. The shadow of the mountain almost reached the island. It lay dark across the land, like the ominous hand of prophecy. For a time, the dull, protesting rumbles of the earth were the only sound. On the island, the air shimmered and coalesced. The black-clad man stood staring at the fiery mountain rising out of the plain, his face twisted in rage and contempt. You cannot escape so easily, dragon. It is not done between us. It will not be done until the end of time. Then he was gone, and the mountain and the island stood alone, waiting. And the shadow fell upon the land, and the world was riven stone from stone. The oceans fled, and the mountains were swallowed up, and the nations were scattered to the 8 corners of the world. The moon was as blood, and the sun was as ashes. The seas boiled, and the living envied the dead. All was shattered, and all but memory lost, and one memory above all others, of him who brought the shadow and the breaking of the world. From Eleth Nintaran Alcamora, The Breaking of the World, author unknown, The Fourth Age. Hold on, guys, I've got one more paragraph. And it came to pass in those days, as it had come before and would come again, that the dark lay heavy across the land and weighed down the hearts of men. And the green things failed, and hope died. And the men cried out to the Creator, saying, O light of the heavens, light of the world, let the promised one be born of the mountain, according to the prophecies, as he was ages past and will be in ages to come. Let the Prince of the morning sing to the land that the green things will grow and the valleys give forth lambs. Let the arm of the Lord of the dawn shelter us from the dark, and the great sword of justice defend us. Let the dragon ride again on the winds of time. From Charal Drenanan Alcamoran, The Cycle of the Dragon, author unknown, The Fourth Age. And so ends the prologue. Chapter 1, just to give you a setting for the next video, Chapter 1 is set probably about 1,000 years after that moment. That moment in time, I didn't understand it until I'd read the books several times, not several times, but much later. I looked back and reread it and I was like, wow, that was a glimpse into what things were, you know, thousands of years ago before the current story starts and takes off. So, lots of clues, lots of hints. He doesn't like to give anything away. He likes to make you think. I'm not going to give away too much. I'm going to wait till the video's posted, and then in the second video when we do Chapter 1 and later on Chapter 2, we'll kind of start to talk about what's happened in videos before. But I want people to read the book and come to their own conclusions about things. And if you have a cool, interesting thing, write it down in the video. I'd love to read it. I'd love to respond to it. But I want to give everybody a chance to read the book on their own before they hear my thoughts. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope we're gonna fix the audio soon. We're gonna get rid of, you know, all the other exterior sounds. Hopefully you'll just hear my my voice. And if you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a share, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, whatever it is that you want to do. I'm very new to this, so we're just having fun and reading my favorite book. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a beautiful day. Stay safe, stay isolated. Remember, it's not just you we're looking out for. It's the person next to you, it's the person across the street, it's your grandmother, it's everybody, you know. Let's just be a good neighbor, you know. Let's be a good neighbor. Y'all be good. We'll see you next time.